What if the way you learned language was completely wrong or brilliantly right? From memorizing verb tables to real-time conversation, the methods are constantly changing. This is your masterclass in language teaching. We're revealing the core secrets of the world's most successful approaches, from the classics to the cutting edge.
Current approaches and methods. 1. Communicative language teaching, CLT. Approach, method, name, communicative language teaching, CLT. Rationale, language is a vehicle for the expression of functional meanings and for performing real-world activities. Activities involving real communication promote learning. The goal is to develop communicative competence, which entails knowing how to use language for a range of different purposes and functions. When it's used, when the goal is an integrated balance of fluency and accuracy, best applied for activities that require negotiation of meaning, involve information sharing, and encourage the creative use of language resources. Framework stages activity sequence. 1. Pre-communicative activities, accuracy-based tasks focusing on presenting structures, functions, and vocabulary. 2. Communication activities, fluency-based tasks focusing on information sharing and information exchange. Classroom example. Teacher-student action, information gap task. The teacher gives student A a partial map, missing 5 street names, and student B a complete map, missing 5 locations. Student interaction. Student A: where is the post office? Student B: it's on Elm Street and next to the bank. What is the name of the street just east of Elm? Student A: that street is Oak Avenue. Can you mark that on your map? 2. Task-based language teaching, TBLT. Approach, method, name, task-based language teaching, TBLT. Rationale, TBLT is derived from the belief that learning is determined by internal mental processes and that successful learning is fostered by tasks that require focuses on process rather than product, aiming to elicit language production and negotiation of meaning. Learning is determined by internal mental processes, and that successful learning is fostered by tasks that require learners to negotiate meaning. The focus is on engaging in purposeful activities that emphasize communication, seeing language as a means of achieving real-world goals. When it's used, when the focus is on process rather than product, aiming to elicit language production and negotiation of meaning, ideal for developing spontaneous, exploratory talk and confidence. Framework stages, Willis's framework. 1. Pre-task, introduction to topic, clarification of task goals, optional highlighting of useful language, but not pre-teaching new structures. 2. The task cycle. Students perform the task, focus on meaning communication, followed by planning a report on how the task was achieved. 3. The language focus. Teacher sets language-focused tasks based on texts, transcripts used during the task cycle, analysis, followed by practice activities based on language identified in the analysis, practice. Classroom example. Teacher action, decision-making task. You are a neighborhood committee. A new bus route must be created using the fewest turns possible. Use the map provided and agree on the route. You have 5 minutes. Student interaction. Student 1, asterisk. I suggest we go straight down Maple Avenue. That will use the least amount of turns. Student 2, asterisk. But if we take Maple, we will miss the new market. We have to pass the market. We should use River Road. Students use their available language to solve the practical problem. Barrier 3. Competency-based language teaching, CBLT. Approach, method, name, competency-based language teaching, CBLT. Rationale. CBLT is an outcomes-based approach, meaning objectives are defined by precise, measurable descriptions of the skills and behaviors students should possess. It focuses on the ability to apply skills in situations commonly encountered in everyday life skills. When it's used in work-related and survival-oriented language programs for adults and immigrants, used when demonstrated mastery of performance objectives and explicit outcomes are required. Framework stages, lesson plan format. 1. Warm-up, review previous content or brainstorm topic. 2. Introduction. Teacher states the lesson objective competency. 3. Presentation. Teacher explains, models, and drills new information or language forms. 4. Comprehension check. Teacher confirms understanding. 5. Guided practice. Students use the language in a short, controlled activity. 6. Communicative practice. Students use the language to complete a communicative task. 7. Evaluation. Students demonstrate learned knowledge, for example, through showing, explaining. 8. Application. Students extend their knowledge to a new situation. Classroom example. Objective. Students will demonstrate the competency, ask where object is located, and follow simple oral directions to locate an object. Teacher action. Presentation guided practice. The teacher models, where is the stapler, and models giving directions. The stapler is on the shelf next to the blue book. The teacher drills the pattern. Student interaction. Communicative practice. Student A, excuse me, where's the application form? Student B, go straight, turn left past the water cooler, it is under the register. Student A performs the actions. Part 3. Alternative 20th century approaches and methods. 4. The natural approach NA. Approach method name, the natural approach NA. Rationale. Language acquisition happens when learners understand input that includes structures slightly beyond their current level, I1. Learning is facilitated by maintaining a low affective filter, low anxiety environment. Speaking is not forced, it should be allowed to emerge. When it's used for beginners who aim to become intermediates, for example in 100-150 hours. Used when focusing heavily on listening and reading comprehension. Framework stages. Initial focus uses TPR techniques. 1. Start with total physical response TPR commands, for example, stand up. 2. Use TPR to introduce nouns, numbers, and sequence. Lay your right hand on your head. 3. Introduce classroom terms and props into commands. Pick up a pencil and put it under the book. 4. Use visuals, pictures, realia to introduce new vocabulary and elicit simple responses like student names. Classroom example. Teacher action, introducing classroom terms. The teacher points to a window. Class, that is a window, writes window on the board. Now Maria touched the window, Jose walks slowly toward the window. Maria and Jose perform the action. Teacher action, eliciting simple response. The teacher describes a student, ensuring comprehension through context gesture. Look at David, he has short hair and a green jacket. What is the name of the student with the green jacket? Student response, David, only the name is required. 5. Total physical response TPR. Approach method name, total physical response TPR. Rationale. The learning is built around the coordination of speech and action. Learners, especially adults, should recapitulate child first language acquisition, where commands are primary. Combining verbal rehearsal with motor activity strengthens memory traces and aids recall. When it's used, introductory levels to teach concrete nouns and imperative of verbs, used as a stress-reducing methodology, focusing on establishing comprehension abilities before productive skills. Framework stages, Asher's lesson sequence. 1. Review. A fast-moving warm-up of known commands, for example, drive your car around Miyako and honk your horn. 2. New commands. Teacher introduces new imperative of verbs and concrete nouns, for example, wash your face, look for a towel. 3. Role reversal. Students volunteer to utter commands to the instructor and other students. 4. Reading and writing. Instructor writes new vocabulary and illustrative sentences on the board, and students listen and copy. Classroom example. Teacher action, introducing new verbs. The teacher models sit down quickly, and the students perform the action quickly. Walk slowly to the table and jump. Students perform the slow walk and jump. Teacher action, role reversal. Student utters a command. Teacher, touch the blue book and then give it to Maria. Teacher performs the physical action. 6. The silent way, SW. Approach method name, the silent way, SW. Rationale. Learning is enhanced when the learner discovers or creates, rather than merely remembers or repeats. The teacher maintains silence as much as possible to force student alertness, encouraging them to produce language and develop self-reliance. Learning is a problem-solving, creative, discovering activity. When it's used, when the goal is to develop independence, autonomy, and responsibility in learners, used with a structural and lexical syllabus where new elements are introduced and immediately applied in a familiar structure. Framework stages, shaping response through elicitation. 1. Teacher models a word phrase minimally and points to cues, Fidel charts, rods. 2. Learners experiment with utterances and sentences, trying to match their production to the teacher's unspoken criteria. 3. Teacher provides silent cues, gestures, color charts, rods to elicit self-correction. 4. Learners eventually move from simple repetition to forming new utterances by combining old and new elements. Classroom example. Teacher action using Cuisenaire rods. The teacher models red once, then points to a red rod. The students repeat. The teacher silently picks up a longer green rod and points from the red rod to the green rod. Student interaction, eliciting comparison. Student 1, asterisk, green. Teacher, Gestures to compare length. Student 2 asterisk, red long, green longer. Student 2 successfully discovers the comparative adjective. Part 2. Current approaches. 1. Content and language integrated learning, CLIL. Approach, method, name, content and language integrated learning, CLIL. Rationale. Learning is optimized when language is used as a means of understanding content, subject matter like history or science, rather than as an end in itself. This approach activates critical cognitive and interactional processes, focusing on both language and subject knowledge objectives when it's used, when the aim is to promote bilingualism or multilingualism within a curriculum and where language learning and academic achievement are inextricably linked. Ideal for educational settings where content mastery is achieved through a second or foreign language medium. Framework stages design driven. 1. Needs analysis, objective setting. Goals are determined based on content mastery and language use objectives. 2. Content presentation. Teacher uses authentic or adapted materials, text, videos, realia to present subject matter. 3. Scaffolding negotiation. Teacher employs modifications like slower speech, repetition, modeling, and multiple examples to ensure content is comprehensible to learners. 4. Collaborative tasks. Students engage in activities, for example, discussion, problem-solving, project work, that require them to use language to process and apply content. Classroom example. Teacher action scaffolding. Presenting a science concept, the teacher models the definition. An ecosystem is the community and the type of habitat where this community lives. The teacher then repeats the definition, emphasizing key vocabulary. Student interaction, applying content language. Students work on a task to analyze a diagram and must use specific terminology. The orange group represents the species because they are organisms able to breed and produce fertile offspring. 7. Whole language. Approach/method. Name, whole language. Rationale. Based on constructivism, viewing learning as a socially constructed holistic process where students create their own meaning. Language must be taught as a whole entity, as breaking it down into discrete skills like phonics or grammar drills means it is not language anymore. The goal is learning to read and write naturally, focusing on real communication. When it's used, most often applied to literacy development. Used when prioritizing authentic literature, personalized learning, and maximizing student choice over what they read and write. Framework stages focused on process creative learning. 1. Immersion, use of authentic literature or real-world texts rather than artificial graded materials. 2. Reading writing workshops. Students engage in individual/small group reading or writing for a real audience. 3. Collaboration/self-direction. Students have choice over what they read and write, encouraging self-reliance, and they work in partnership with other learners. 4. Reflection sharing. Students share their work and reflect on the learning process, supporting long-term retention. Classroom example. Teacher action, facilitation. The teacher gives students 2 different English translations of the same short story, parallel texts, and asks them to determine which version sets a more appealing tone. Student interaction, creating meaning. Student A. The first translation says the village was quiet and desolate. I think that sets a sad tone and I wouldn't live there. Student B. My version says the village was ever so snug. I prefer the second village because the language suggests it is cozy. 8. Text-based instruction, TBI. Approach, method, name, text-based instruction, TBI. Rationale. Communicative competence involves explicitly learning the distinctive organization and linguistic features of whole texts or genres. Language use is shaped by social context and manifests as different genres, text types, for example, reports, narratives. When it's used, when the goal is to develop mastery of specific genres relevant to a context, for example, academic study, workplace communication. Used when employing an explicit approach to teaching discourse and grammatical rules as they function within texts. Framework stages, teaching learning cycle, phases, 5 phases. 1. Building the context, discussing the social context, audience, and purpose of the target text type. 2. Modeling and deconstructing. Teacher analyzes a model of the text to show its required structure and highlights its key linguistic features, for example, specific verb tenses. 3. Joint construction. Teacher and students collaboratively create a new text following the conventions of the model. 4. Independent construction. Students draft and present their own versions of the text, speaking or writing, which may be used for assessment. 5. Links to related texts. Comparing the use of the text type across different fields or comparing spoken-written modes. Classroom example. Teacher action, deconstruction. The teacher displays an information report model, pointing out that reports typically use the simple present tense to state facts and the inclusion of relative pronouns. Student interaction independent construction. The students are instructed to draft their own information report on popular sports in my country, ensuring they use the required organizational structure and check off the use of the simple present tense and relative pronouns. 9. The lexical approach. LA. Approach method name. The lexical approach. LA. Rationale. Language consists not primarily of grammar and single words, but of multi-word prefabricated chunks. Collocations, fixed phrases. Fluency is achieved by producing language from these chunks rather than generating every sentence grammatically. The goal is to develop automatic usage based on noticing and retention when it's used. When integrating lexical training into fluency-focused courses to boost spontaneous speech and accuracy of usage. Collocation. Useful for promoting the pragmatic fluency that comes from knowing the right lexical phrase for the right functional situation. Framework, stages, focus on awareness and memory. 1. Awareness activities. Activities designed to facilitate noticing chunks in authentic input, for example, contrasting the usage collocation of similar words like predict and forecast. 2. Training in text chunking. Students actively identify multi-word units in an authentic text, for example, highlighting collocations. 3. Memory-enhancing activities. Elaboration. Students focus on the form, meaning, and associations of chunks to aid retention in long-term memory. 4. Retelling application. Students retell stories or summarize texts, attempting to use the target chunks encountered previously. Classroom example. Teacher action. Awareness/data-driven learning. The teacher displays authentic sentences showing that forecast is often preceded by gloomy or followed by words like economic performance, and asks students to identify patterns. Student interaction. Student, I learned the phrase gloomy forecast. It's better to learn the combination of words together than just the single word forecast. 10. Cooperative language learning, CLL. Approach, method, name, cooperative language learning, CLL. Rationale. Learning is promoted by structuring group work where individuals are held accountable while working towards shared goals. Positive interdependence. The systematic use of collaboration fosters scaffolding, critical thinking, and a positive, effective classroom climate. When it's used to build an inclusive classroom where competition is minimized, ideal for tasks that require mutual support and where students need to be taught strategies for effective social interaction, for example, peer tutoring and resolving communication breakdowns. Framework stages, structured group work, formal CLL group sequence. 1. Group formation. Students are assigned to formal groups for long-term tasks or informal ad hoc groups for short tasks. 2. Positive interdependence. The task is structured so that the group's success requires mutual aid, for example, producing a single group product or achieving a group average score. 3. Collaborative task. Students perform structured activities like jigsaw, differentiated input, or round table, shared paper pen to achieve a joint objective. 4. Accountability. Assessment. Each member takes a test or produces an individual assignment component to demonstrate mastery of the overall shared information. Classroom example, jigsaw task. Teacher action, task setup. The teacher divides a complex article into 4 unique sections. Each student in the home group gets 1 section. Students then meet in expert groups to master their respective parts. Student interaction, home group. Student A. My section described the causes of the pollution. Now I need to know the solutions that were proposed in your part of the text. Student B teaches student A their section. The students then write a joint summary, shared goal of the entire article's content, positive interdependence. 11. Community language learning, CLL. Approach, method, name, community language learning, CLL. Rationale. Based on the analogy of counseling learning, where the teacher acts as a supportive knower to the students, clients. Learning is a whole-person process achieved collaboratively in a secure atmosphere where effective barriers are overcome. When it's used, primarily in introductory conversation courses where the focus is on reducing anxiety and promoting self-expression, used when the syllabus is fluid and evolves directly from topics nominated by the learners. Framework stages, counseling social process, the sequence of SARD, which includes analysis, discrimination, and reflection, retention. 1. L1, whispering. A student whispers a message or meaning they want to express in their native language. L1. 2. L2, translation modeling. The teacher, counselor translates and models the message into foreign language. L2. 3. Recording repetition. The student repeats the L2 message, often using an audio recorder. 4. Analysis transcription. Students analyze and study transcribed utterances for linguistic forms, usages, discrimination. D. 5. Reflection. Students reflect and report on their feelings and learning experiences. Retention, reflection. R. Classroom example. student action, L1 whispering. Student A whispers to the counselor, I want to ask the group what they are going to do next weekend, but I don't know how to use the future tense correctly. Teacher action, L2 modeling. The teacher translates and models, L2, I am going to ask the group what their plans for next weekend are. Student interaction, recording, analysis. Student A repeats the L2 phrase and the recording is later transcribed. The class analyzes the transcript, noting the use of going to for future plans, analysis, discrimination. 12. Suggestopedia, approach, method, name, suggestopedia. Rationale, learning is enhanced through suggestion and desuggestion, eliminating psychological barriers. A highly relaxed state, concert pseudo-passiveness, is induced via rhythmic presentation of material, 60 beats a minute, over Baroque music to optimize unconscious retention when it's used. For intensive courses aiming for rapid conversational proficiency by mastering large amounts of content vocabulary quickly. Used when the objective is mastery of extensive dialogues and vocabulary, often relying on the authority of the teacher to induce learner confidence and suggestibility. Framework/stages, the lesson cycle. 1. Presentation. Text. Introduction. Teacher discusses the general content of a long dialogue, and learners receive the text with a parallel L1 translation. 2. Concert session. Formal. Students listen to the teacher read the text dramatically over Baroque music while following the text in their books. 3. Concert session. Informal. Students close their books, lean back, and listen again to the material read in harmony with the music, maintaining a pseudo-passive state. 4. Elaboration activation. Students engage in varied creative activities, games, role-play, kwanda, to work actively and creatively with the language previously presented unconsciously. Classroom example. Teacher action. Concert session formal. The teacher plays slow movement Baroque music and reads a long dialogue text aloud, modulating his or her voice in harmony with the musical rhythm. Student interaction informal session. Students follow instructions to relax and breathe deeply, closing their books to receive input unconsciously through the music. They are also assigned a new identity name in the target language to help them detach from their past learning experiences. Approach, method, name. 13. The grammar translation method, GTM. Rationale. The primary goal of foreign language study is to enable students to read its literature or to benefit from the mental discipline and intellectual development resulting from language study. It approaches language through the detailed analysis of its grammar rules, followed by application of this knowledge to translation. Learning is primarily seen as memorizing rules and facts in order to understand and manipulate the morphology and syntax of the foreign language. The learner's native language serves as the reference system in the acquisition of the second language. When it's used. When understanding literary texts is the primary focus of foreign language study, and there is little need for spoken knowledge. It is widely used in some parts of the world, often due to factors like limited teacher proficiency in spoken English or the need for a sense of control in large classes. Framework stages, analysis and application. 1. Grammar is taught deductively by presentation and study of rules. 2. Rules are then practiced through translation exercises. 3. Vocabulary items are presented with their translation equivalents and learned through memorization. 4. The sentence is the basic unit of teaching and practice. 5. The native language is the medium of instruction used to explain new items and enable comparisons. Classroom example. Teacher action. The teacher presents a rule, for example on noun declension or word order, and a list of corresponding bilingual vocabulary items. Student task translation. Students labor over translating sentences constructed purely to illustrate the grammatical system. Example sentence. The philosopher pulled the lower jaw of the hen, or in another classic example, the horse of the father was kind. 14. The oral approach in situational language teaching, SLT, Chapter 3. Approach, method, name, the oral approach, situational language teaching, SLT. Rationale. Language is a system of grammatical patterns and structures, with speech considered the basis of language ability. Learning is viewed as habit formation achieved through repetition and practice. Meanings of new words or structures are not explained or translated but must be induced from the situation in which the form is used. The structure of language is closely linked to the context and situations in which it is used. When it's used, when the objectives are to teach a practical command of the 4 language skills, with a strong focus on achieving accuracy in grammar and pronunciation. It is best applied when introducing and practicing new language points situationally, using demonstrations, physical objects, realia, actions, and gestures to convey meaning. Framework stages, PPP, presentation, practice, production. The primary legacy of this approach. 1. Presentation. The new structure is introduced and presented, typically through setting up a situation or demonstration. 2. Controlled practice. Learners receive intensive, guided practice in the structure, for example, through choral repetition and substitution activities. 3. Production. Free practice. Students practice using the structure without explicit teacher control. 4. Checking. Further practice. The teacher elicits use of the new structure to confirm learning and provides additional practice. Classroom example. Teacher action, presentation. The teacher holds up an object modeling the target structure. This is a book. The teacher points to an object across the room. That is a clock. Student interaction, controlled practice. The teacher uses the class or classroom realia to lead intensive drills, prompting students to use the patterns accurately. For example, the teacher might ask students to sit down quickly. 15. The audiolingual method, ALM, Chapter 4. Approach, method name, the audiolingual method, ALM. Rationale, based on structural linguistics and behaviorism. Learning involves stimulus, response, and reinforcement. Language learning is fundamentally a process of mechanical habit formation achieved by repetition and drills. Speech is primary, and early instruction should focus on the systematic mastery of phonological and grammatical structures. Analogy provides a better basis for learning than analysis. When it's used in intensive programs where oral proficiency and high accuracy are the primary goals. Ideal for programs requiring systematic attention to pronunciation and intensive oral drilling of core sentence patterns. Often used where contrastive analysis predicts learning problems stemming from differences between the native and target language. Framework stages, oral focus and intensive drilling. 1. Dialogue, memorization. Students first hear a model dialogue containing key structures, then repeat and memorize it line by line, often in chorus. 2. Pattern drills. Key structures from the dialogue are selected for various pattern practice exercises, for example, repetition, inflection, replacement, expansion, transformation. 3. Application. Students may engage in follow-up reading, writing, or vocabulary activities based on the dialogue, but writing is initially purely imitative. 4. Laboratory work. Follow-up activities may take place in the language laboratory for further controlled, error-free practice of basic structures. Classroom example. Teacher action, inflection drill. The teacher states, "I bought the asterisk ticket asterisk." Student response, "I bought the asterisk tickets asterisk." Teacher action, repetition with addition. The teacher states, "I used to know him." Student response, "I used to know him asterisk years ago asterisk. I used to know him asterisk years ago when we were in school." The eclectic approach. While many methods provide a fixed prescription for teaching, for example, the teacher's role is fixed as a knower or counselor, the modern view in language pedagogy favors principled eclecticism or post-method philosophy. This approach acknowledges that a single method is not suitable for all learners or contexts and requires teachers to select and blend different principles based on local circumstances. A teacher adopts an eclectic approach by using their professional knowledge to determine the lesson's purpose and choosing instructional procedures from various methods that best suit that purpose.